Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking, and I am Del Barzi. And as always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing career, from students to retirees and anywhere in between. And so today, I am very, very, very pleased to welcome Professor Justine Bailey. Justine is an educator, she's an entrepreneur, and she's going to tell us all about herself. So welcome, Justine.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Dale. When you asked me to participate, I was like, oh my goodness, what an honor. And I'm so glad that over this time we've gotten to know each other too and build a rapport and really just support what we're both doing in the space of nursing. So thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. So tell me a little bit about you. How did you come to be a nurse?
Well, I've been a registered nurse. I'm a registered nurse here in Canada, Ontario, Canada. I've been nursing for over 15 years. I stumbled across nursing. It wasn't something that I just knew right off the bat that it was something I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something health related, but really at the time, it was my parents pushing me to get into nursing because it was a stable job.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from an immigrant family, my parents are Filipino, they want their children and the next generation to have that stability in a career. So I was naturally, I wouldn't say pushed, but kind of
Shepherded?
guided. Yeah. Led, guided into the profession. And just over the years, I have learned to love the profession, the amazing opportunities that are involved within the career of nursing, the opportunity to grow, to work where, when, however you want. And I've just kind of learned to love the profession of nursing over time. And I still feel like that relationship is still evolving as I'm evolving as a person. It's funny when people ask you, oh, what do you do for a living? And you say, oh, I'm a nurse. People already have an idea of what that means, right? Which is why we're doing Nurses Talking to begin with. But traditionally, people think you work in a hospital, you work with clients, and I knew right off the bat, I didn't necessarily want to stay with working with patients at the bedside. I started out right at the bottom, clinical teacher for a few years, contract at many different universities and colleges, just trying to get experience while attending graduate school. And just kind of built my way up and finally kind of landed a full-time position in academia. And most recently, I have transitioned out of academia into entrepreneurship. And isn't that the beauty of nursing? You can transition and flow and move and navigate however you want or whatever pace you want. And a lot of people don't realize that, right?
Exactly.
Especially in nursing school, because you're taught,
No
nope,
one tells you.
you do this position, then you move to this, at least 2 or 3 years, you need a med surg. And then, but I'm always a big champion for, making career moves that work for you, right?
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
yeah, that's a little
Indeed,
bit about
indeed.
me. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. And the thing about making career moves that work for you is that we all come to this, we all have different personalities and different interests and different things to offer. We can't all offer the same thing in the same place,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what were the challenges for you yeah, what were the challenges for you working in the institutional setting, if there were any?
Oh, challenges. Okay. In my most recent kind of role in academia, maybe
Yeah.
I'll start with that. Well, first, I attended graduate school right after my undergrad. And that was a big no-no back in my
Uh-huh.
day, where the belief was there was a rite of passage that every
Mm-hmm.
student needed to go through. You work 1 or 2 years in med surge or gain some clinical experience, and then you apply to graduate school. Well, I totally did it my way. So the challenge for me, I always felt, was I was always up against the traditional way of thinking. I guess I don't know if we want to call it like the rituals of nursing or the
Mm.
unspoken
Yeah.
pathways, right?
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
you are supposed to do when once you
Yeah.
once you
Yeah.
graduate. So that in and of itself was, I was going against the grain. I was going against what everyone else was telling me not to do.
Yeah.
And like
Mm-hmm.
cycle back 15 years in later, I'm still doing that now, kind
Mm.
of transitioning out of academia and into the entrepreneurial space. That's a big no-no, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that goes
Mm-hmm.
against the whole, it's not stable, we don't know too much, not too many people are doing it, especially here in Canada. It's
Ah.
very untraditional, unheard of. You don't see a lot of nurse entrepreneurs and people of color also.
Uh-huh.
That's
Mm-hmm.
another barrier that I
Yeah.
learned very quickly getting into the system. And I say system as in, the academic world and the system
Yeah.
of just, as nurses, we have to navigate what the hospital system
Uh-huh.
looks like,
Mm-hmm.
what the school system
What?
looks like. And I learned very on, as a person of color, there are unique challenges, such as you don't see people around you that look like you when you're sitting at leadership tables
Yeah.
in management meetings. And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you've experienced that
Yeah.
too in your career.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there are not a lot of role models that you can really look up to and say, hey, I really
Mm-hmm.
admire what you're doing, and I want to, can I
Yeah.
pick your brain? None of that existed. I think it's getting better now.
Yeah.
um so that was a challenge too, being a visible minority and kind of navigating that
Mm-hmm.
system,
Yeah.
and still doing it up until this day too. um I also think too, another barrier was just kind of unlearning, what we're taught in school, or like what we're, I know you're taught in nursing school the foundational skills, but I also think there's a curriculum, a hidden curriculum, if you will,
Mm.
where, and some educators might not even think about, but because I've taught in many years of
Yeah.
different years, and I've seen over time just how curriculum really shapes and molds our thinking, and then we go
Mm-hmm.
into the nursing world, and
It
it's
comes in.
yeah, it's for me, it was unlearning. Okay, you know I've learned what I've learned in nursing school. How can I now uh apply this in a way that works for me, right? So for example, nursing school talks a lot about, um let's say, autonomy, right, or critical thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
teaching
Mm-hmm.
students those types of skills. But then when you're working as a nurse at the bedside, or in education, or in management, or in leadership, what have you, it's how do you take that concept and apply it to the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that in itself, when you add the layer of being a person of color, being a female, be like all those other layers, can get that can be a challenging experience. So
Can, because there's a lot of bias built into the system.
100%, 100% implicit bias, not
Implicit bias.
outward, right?
Yeah.
It's all implicit, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that those are some of the barriers that I've encountered for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I get it. I get it.
Mm.
So you worked in the emergency room.
Yes. I
So
know you're
you,
chuckling. You know what?
yeah, you
That
like the adrenaline pumping.
what's that?
I said, you like the adrenaline pumping.
I thought I did. I thought I did.
Due to that time.
And then I was like,
Hmm.
it's not sustainable. It's
Hmm.
not sustainable. At the time it worked for that moment in my career. I worked there for
Yeah,
a few years, about 7 years or so, on and off, like casual, part-time. Um, but I realized the good thing about that is the learning curve was like this, right?
yes,
As a new
yes.
grad, it's like this. It's not a steady, no, you're
Hmm.
learning like this. And,
Hmm.
I typically, again, it wasn't the traditional thing for emergency departments to hire new grads. That just
Hmm.
wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
And so I was kind of, I was kind of the oddball out, if you will, because I was a new grad in the emergency department. And so people already stereotype
Yeah,
that in and of
yeah,
itself.
yeah,
So there's a lot of proving you have to do, right? So again, that was how I started my career, is trying to really like prove myself
hmm,
and
hmm.
people wrong, and also prove to myself that no, I belong here. I'm
Yeah,
capable. I may not know it all, and I never pretended to, but I knew what my strengths were, and I was willing to learn and put in the work and effort to make sure that I was safe, and that I would get support where I needed. And the emergency department that I worked at was great. There was a trust there, but there was also, I knew what my strengths were and what my areas of weakness were, and so I didn't delve into anything that I knew I didn't have the knowledge, skill, or judgment to do,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
Like
hmm,
even as a new grad, I never triaged until maybe a year
hmm.
into working, because I
Yeah,
knew I wasn't ready for that yet, right?
yeah,
And as
yeah,
much as the manager was kind of, no, you got to learn, da, 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 da. I I know I really advocated for myself, like let me really just hone down on my clinical skills, my critical thinking, get a good feel of the flow
yeah,
and the pace before I sit in that hot seat, because
yeah.
that,
That is a seat.
yeah, that is a seat. Yes. Have you worked in the emergency department too, Dale?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
That is
you
a
know,
seat.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that
And
experience,
you just talked about advocating for yourself.
yeah.
That in itself is a skill that has to be really learned and practiced, and because you can get pushed into stuff,
Oh yeah.
and resistance is not viewed as it's viewed with a kind eye.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, it also it comes with my personality too. I'm naturally outspoken, and I
Hmm.
will naturally, if something doesn't sit right in my soul and in my
Yeah.
core, I will
Hmm.
speak out at the appropriate time, of course.
Hmm.
So that was something and that's kind of, what I had to do in that scenario as well, is just really speak up for myself. And thankfully, I had a preceptor who believed in that too, and really kind of supported me
Yeah,
from that
yeah.
angle. But yeah, the advocacy, self advocacy comes from knowing who you are and knowing
Hmm.
yourself,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
standing up for what you really believe in, and what your truth is. So yeah, that's definitely something I'm still learning as I'm evolving as a person too. But in the emergency department at that time in my career, yeah, I felt very important that I needed to do that so I don't lose my license either,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a good thing, and I honed in on that you talked about advocacy because, um, you know, during the course of our education as nurses, it can become so overwhelming, and the responsibility that you begin to feel can be so much that you can lose yourself,
Oh, yeah.
um, and not, just kind of forget that you need to be responsible for what's happening with you, and just kind of go with it because, oh, I need to do this because someone says this is what I should do. I need to do this, and you can lose yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we can get so caught up in um the flow of the shift or
Yeah,
the pressure
pressure.
that management is really kind of forcing
Yeah,
down. And if we don't say something, then just the cycle continues,
it
right? And then they
continues.
ask for more and more and then more, then some more until we do something and say something. And I think nurses now are becoming better at that,
Yeah,
voicing out. I
yeah,
mean, we saw what was happening in New York, right? And
yeah.
and even here in Ontario, with Bill
Hmm.
124, like here in Ontario, that bill is around like increasing pay for nurses,
Hmm.
and we're
Hmm.
speaking out
Hmm. Hmm.
more, and we're advocating for ourselves as a nursing
Yeah,
profession,
yeah.
and that's great because we're doing it for our patients, but we're not doing it for
But
ourselves.
we're not doing it for ourselves. Yes, exactly, exactly, exactly. And that's one of the things we talk about here on this, because many things that we accept for ourselves, we would never accept for our patients. We would never accept for patients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But the thing about nurses advocating for themselves and speaking up comes with the evolution of nursing, and the fact that it has gotten so broad, and nurses are realizing that they can be in so many different places, and that they have the ability to pursue higher and higher education, because if you pursue higher education, you can see yourself in a different role. You can see yourself in a management role. You can see yourself in an educational role. You can see yourself, you know, in the coroner's office, or wherever you choose to be.
mm,
And that gives you a certain bit of confidence, and feeling of independence, and standing, being able to stand your ground.
absolutely. Empowerment,
Yeah,
right?
that's the word. Yeah,
Empowerment, where you
yeah,
stand confident in who you are and what you've been through, and you are more confident to speak up when.
yeah, 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 yeah. And not for nothing, but I do think that this last pandemic helped a lot with that.
Yeah,
It took its toll. It took its toll, but it helps a lot with that, I think.
yeah, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah,
it caused also a lot of people to rethink what their nursing career would look like,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, I think it really caused everyone to put a mirror in front of themselves
yeah. Hmm.
and think about, as nurses, what do I really want to be doing? Like, do I really want to be doing this
Yeah,
long term? Is
yeah.
it worth it? Is it worth
Hmm.
putting my family at risk, or is it worth missing all the family events and all the things
Yeah.
that give me joy? What am I really doing and why? I
And why?
think it
Yeah,
really caused a lot of people to reflect that way. And some people made the pivot, some people didn't. But
yeah.
at least it caused everyone to stop
To
in their
think
tracks
about it.
and think. Yeah.
Yes, because and you just made a point, because very often as nurses we thought about missing family events and stuff like that, and we accepted that, and I guess for the most part, in many ways, our families accepted that. We never, though, or very rarely internalized that our very job was putting our family at risk.
Hmm.
And I think the risk thing is what really, showed up a lot. It was like, wait a minute, I can miss some things, but do I really want to put my family at risk every single day like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, you became an entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so weird that you say that, even just you introducing me as an entrepreneur, it seems so foreign to me because I'm still coming to terms with that label, so to speak, right? Because it can mean so many different things too,
Mhm.
right? But as we were talking about the pandemic and COVID and what it caused people to do, I was one of those people that I had the mirror in front of me and was
Mhm.
really doing a lot of reflecting, a lot of prayer, a lot of just soul searching too at the time. And I decided to pivot and move out of academia full time. I still teach, part time, but I wanted to transition and use my nursing skills in just a different way, a non-traditional way, um, through social media and through other arms of the business. So it's only been 6 months since I've actually officially pivoted
Mhm.
into the entrepreneurial space. And so, that was a decision where I had to really think about, will I still be a nurse if I pivot this way? And if I'm not, teaching in nursing school, would I still be considered a nurse? And again, it's that unlearning that has to happen, right? Yes, of course, you're still a nurse. You still have those letters behind your name. You're just using your skills in a different context, in a different forum. And I would argue a forum where there's more of an audience than standing in
Yeah.
front of a classroom or at a lecture hall lecturing your 100 students or whatever, right? So yes, I got into the entrepreneurial space. I'm still learning. I don't know it all, but I'm learning so much just about social media, business, networking, relationships, marketing, graphic design. Like it is, and I'm sure you have too, developing
Yeah.
your YouTube channel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You go through, what's a hashtag?
Well, exactly.
how do you use hashtags strategically? How do you SEO and
Mhm.
optimizing your titles, and all of that is new,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm up for the challenge. And
Yeah.
just like anything, you're learning a new skill, you read
Yeah.
about it, you YouTube it,
Yeah. Right.
right? You YouTube it, you
Yeah.
practice it some more and more, you talk to people who've done it, and eventually over time you learn it. And it's
Yes.
no different than
Next
what
thing.
I'm doing now
Mhm.
in entrepreneurship, right? I'm in
Yeah.
that building phase and learning phase. But I there's growth, and I know I'm going to grow incrementally, and I'm just putting my faith and trust that as long as I do the work, he'll take care of the rest.
And that's it. And that's it. You do the work. You do the work and the rest will come. I have learned
Exactly.
that. I have learned that the rest will come. So,
Yeah.
but your company is called just like that.
Yes.
It's still education though, isn't it?
It is. That's the main arm. Just like that,
Exactly.
my niche, well, just like that was created for nursing students,
Mhm.
particularly nursing students of color. I really want to champion diversity and really
Mhm.
empower students of color, nurses of color. Um,
Mhm.
and so just like that, it was meant to help nursing students kind of navigate the system of nursing school, the unspoken
Yeah.
curriculum, the hidden
Mhm.
curriculum,
Mhm.
coming from someone who's taught in the curriculum, um, and really helping them succeed in school. But then when they transition into the role of a nurse now, they feel confident to really step into that role, and really kind of navigate their career if they decide to pursue graduate school, if they decide to apply for, a job. What does that look like? Because I would argue once you leave nursing school, you're kind of left to figure stuff out on your own in terms of how to move up that
Yeah.
corporate ladder, how to, you
Mm-hmm.
know, m-
Yeah.
move through your career. And so that's kind of what it's all about. And I don't know if it will always be kind of the education, but that's kind of where I'm starting because it's familiar, because I know that space, I know the niche or the audience, and so that's kind of how I'm starting out. Um, but who knows? Like it could delve into other things, speaking engagements,
I was a mm-hmm.
speaking workshops, doing continuing education workshops, doing coaching. Like that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
really passionate about too, is just kind of coaching students
Yeah.
through milestones in their career,
Yeah.
getting them to unlearn some of the things that they've learned in nursing school, getting them to open their minds a little bit and think of themselves. Yes, you're a nurse, but there are so many other opportunities outside of the hospital that your nursing school doesn't really promote or
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what Just Like That is all about.
And that's a good thing because we talk a lot about not learning certain things in nursing school, but at the end of the day, really nursing is so huge that you really cannot learn all of these things in nursing school. And so this is where stuff like Just Like That comes in, because and fills that gap.
Yeah.
um because even yes, you still need coaching, you still need guidance, you still need that someone to say, yeah, but you can go here, you don't
Mhm.
have to abandon your nesting, all of this, you
Yeah.
really can go this way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And help you find the steps to go that way.
Exactly. Because fortunate, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to leave the hospital completely, but you can do the hospital in a side gig, a side hustle. You can, create a career that works for you, that gives you passion, that
Yeah.
fills you up, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not so drained at the end of the day, and then you're working on fumes, right? You
Yep.
want to be able to, if you want to have a sustainable nursing career, you've got to fill yourself up. Otherwise, how can you serve others if your cup is not
Exactly.
filled, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
So that brings me to a question that I wanted to ask is what does self-care mean to you? Because everybody's banding about self-care these days, but what does it mean? It means different things to different people. What does it mean to you?
Self-care, self-care. Um, when I think about self-care, I think about, you know, loving yourself, right? And it's not even about loving yourself first, because in some situations you're not going to be first all the time, right?
Right.
I think our culture has this idea of, no, you've got to put yourself first, right? But in reality, sometimes that's not always possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think about, new moms. I went through this with my two kids. New moms, you have a newborn, your baby needs to be fed first before
Mm-hmm.
before you can brush your teeth, or
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So there are some situations where you just might not come first, and that's okay. So I've kind of learned that self-care is just about showing yourself love, like just taking care of yourself, whether that's physical, spiritual, emotional, is taking that time every day to really care for yourself. And I'm not talking about brushing your teeth or doing your hair, or just something that really gives you joy or makes you feel good about yourself. For me, it's things like putting on a full face of makeup, or just doing a YouTube workout in my basement for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's just showing your self-love that you matter too. And I've learned to accept that I may not always be able to put my needs first, but as long as I consistently show myself love, whether that's through makeup or going shopping for the day or whatever, that's also important too. So self-care, to sum it up, is showing yourself love, even if that means you're not always first, but doing it in a consistent way, in a way that fills your cup, that gives you joy, that allows you to be able to do what you do best. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a big
Yeah.
question.
It is a big question, but I ask it because I realize that we don't all have the same notion of
Uh,
what self-care is. It does not mean the same thing to everybody, you
mm,
know. Someone the other day, I was speaking to a nurse the other day who actually said, gave me an idea that I never thought about this. I
okay.
asked that same question, what does self-care mean to you? And she said, self-care, and she went into this, she, I take thee. She did the whole marriage vow thing to herself.
I
I
take thee.
promise to you, I take care of you. And I thought, why not?
Yeah, like to
Wrote
love
her own,
yourself.
yes, she wrote her own vows to herself and solemnly took those vows. I was like, all right,
Okay.
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 I love it. And I had never thought about it like that. Um, but I think that when you do something like that, it becomes so concrete.
Yeah.
And so you somehow internalize and make this a definite part of who you are and your vision for yourself. And I thought, that's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. You make a good point, because oftentimes self-care is an afterthought,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's something
Yeah,
that you think of, oh, what have I done for myself today,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
not ingrained or
Mm-hmm.
inherent in part of who we are or what our
Exactly.
day-to-day activities are. So to
Mm-hmm.
make it official, where she's pronouncing vows to herself, like that's a pretty amazing way to like make it official, right?
Yeah, yeah. Indeed,
Because
indeed.
for many of us, it's like, oh, what did I do for
Yeah,
myself? I know
exactly.
it's for me.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's a funny story, tale.
It's funny, yeah, but it resonated with me. I was like, okay, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. So, Justine, there is a thing I've been noticing that I can recognize nurses, even if they don't tell me they're nurses.
Really?
So I started to wonder, well, what is it that I saw in somebody that makes me think, oh, this person is a nurse? What was the quality that I saw? And then I began to realize it will be a different quality for different people. Different people will recognize the same, that some other quality in a person that makes them say it's a nurse. So
Hmm.
if you had to describe a most recognizable quality of a nurse in just one word, what would that word be?
The first thing that comes to mind is genuineness.
Genuine. Okay.
Yeah, where they're is genuineness a word? Genuine.
Listen, words are things that people made up. So if it wasn't a word before, it's a
Hey,
word today. It's a
there
word
you
right now.
go. There you go. Um, yeah, genuineness, sincerity, where people are doing things not because they have to, but because they want to.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny because even just, people, I would, meet people and they would say, "Are you a nurse?" without me even telling them. But it's
Exactly.
funny that Do
You
you
begin
count
to wonder.
what's yeah, you begin to wonder, oh, okay, I'm kind of getting this vibe that she exhibits these
Mhm.
qualities. She must be a nurse.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and then you're surprised when they're not, right? Oh,
Yes.
you should consider nursing.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, Justin, is there any little gem you would like to leave us with?
A gem, words of
Mhm.
advice, words
Okay,
of,
words of advice. Yes.
you know, I'm going to speak to all my nursing students who may be watching this, or new graduate nurses who are still very early on in their careers. Um, I would really just empower you and encourage you to keep doing the hard work that is involved in nursing school, but know that it's worth it, because you are entering a profession where there's a world of opportunities, a profession where you can grow as an individual, as a person, and really make an impact on people, not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And so I encourage you to keep doing the hard work during nursing school, but also know that that work will continue after you graduate. So yeah, that would kind of be my last parting words for my nursing students and new grads.
Well, thank you so very, very much, Justine.
You're
This was a
welcome,
great
Jane.
conversation. I loved talking to you.